Hello and welcome to MINKA Vision. This is the space where we conversate with members of our MINKA family to find out about their spiritual practice and their journey. I'm your host, Trisha Ben Davies, and my guest today is Thérèse Cator, who is a mother, artist, leadership coach, intuitive healer, and soul guide, whose work lies at the intersection of leadership, spirituality, reclamation, and social change. Thérèse is also the founder of Black Girls Breathe and hosted the first global healing day for Black women and women of color all over the world, where over 3,000 participated. Thérèse, welcome.
Thank you so much, Trisha, for that introduction. I'm so happy to be part of the MINKA family and to be talking with you today for the first time. This is like the first time we're connecting, so.
I'm so excited. When Aki asked me to interview you, I was just like, I hadn't heard of you. I saw your name on the roster for workshops, and I was super excited, but I hadn't dived into your work. And when I did, it resonated so deeply. So I'm super honored to share space with you and find out more about you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you too.
Cool. So actually, how did you meet Aki?
Well, Aki, it was like, I think through someone had told me like, you should teach at MINKA. And it was through one of those, like someone told me, and then I went to the MINKA website and it just resonated, like just everything about it. And just being rooted in social justice, that really resonated with me. And the space is beautiful. So that's how we met. And then I ended up hosting a workshop there, and then I also attended one of the open houses, which was amazing back when we could like have an open house and see people. So it was like so great to go out, support the other practitioners that are there, and just to be in that space. And it's such a beautiful space, and it's actually not far from where I grew up. So I love that it's right there in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I'm grateful now that we have the bandwidth to pool our resources and still be able to be in community virtually. But I know that I for one am really just waiting for the moment that we can be back in the space so we can all be together again. And yeah.
I know there's nothing like hand to hand, heart to heart, what I say, like just breath to breath and just that human connection. And, you know, definitely navigating this now is making me like, I think it's making all of us being like, wow, we took that for granted in so many ways.
Sure. Yeah. For sure. I used to live, I'm in North Carolina currently, but I used to live in Flatbush, maybe like a 10-minute walk from MINKA. And I definitely took it for granted. Sometimes I would just be like, oh yeah, I can go to MINKA anytime. I could just, walk down the street. And now I can't do that. So I'm really missing it. But so where are you from? You're originally from New York?
Yeah, I grew up in New York City. My family is actually from Haiti. I was born in Haiti, but I came when I was like really only a couple of years old. But I grew up in New York City. So for me, it was growing up in a household where it was like holistic and, very connected to the earth. And then like, boom, I'm in the concrete jungle of New York. So it was definitely a lot of navigating those, what I felt was like two worlds. So yeah, but it's great because, part of me, it's like gave me that resiliency for sure, growing up in New York City, a city like New York City. Back when I grew up in New York City, it was like Brooklyn, when you would tell someone, oh, you live in Brooklyn, like, oh, you live in the hood. It doesn't matter where you live. They were like, oh, Brooklyn, that's the hood. Oh, I don't go to Brooklyn. And now it's like completely different, gentrified. That's the word.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I love that a lot of your work is rooted in the earth. Did that come from the way you grew up and your parents?
Yeah, that definitely comes from the way I grew up. Everyone in my family, they're healers. So, and when I say they're healers in the holistic sense, and actually they work on the front lines. The majority of my family are actually right now on the front lines as doctors and nurses. on the front lines in New York City, actually beyond New York City, also in Florida and different states and in other parts of the world. So it's really interesting because I kind of made that link. I never really saw that as that, but the way that I guess it progressed was that because we live in a society that neglects or doesn't acknowledge healing, the healing of the ways of the earth, they had to make a living. So they became, they became nurses and doctors, and that's how they're able to make a living. But everyone in my family still practices like plant medicine and that. I would say they believe in that more.
Yeah. And I think now, like, as we're kind of seeing the cracks in our in our healthcare system, we're all kind of returning to our original practices and working, in relationship with the land. So I think that's really important.
Yes, I mean, it's so important. My mom, anywhere, like growing up in Brooklyn, we would, take walks, and she would just, pick up plants and be like, oh, this is this plant and this would be good for that. And, she, would come where I live now, and we'd go on walks, and it would be like nature walks where she would be like, oh, this is this plant and this is what it's good for. So what I've been doing actually is just writing those things down, that medicine down, and so that I can remember and pass it down. And that's wisdom.
Yeah.
That's wisdom.
I think that's
and what a lot of
wow.
Yeah, and a lot of things that people don't realize in terms of Haiti is that Haiti, the culture there comes, part of the plant medicine culture comes from the natives, the indigenous people there, who were the Arawaks and the Tianos. So it's actually merged with the African culture as well as that culture. So it gets erased in many ways just because of the color of the skin, right? It gets erased. So I really, so it's both of those cultures coming together, and that's what actually comes out from Haiti.
I think that's so beautiful and really important that we remember and honor where this knowledge comes from. And I think it's, it's something that's innate with us. Like my nephew, grows herbs, and I don't think that he knows, like, consciously what the herbs are for, but he's really drawn to lemon balm. And, lemon balm is really good for anxiety, and we are an anxious family. And he's been doing this. Yeah, he's been making tea, and he makes it fresh. So he'll just go outside and pick some leaves, and he'll wash them and then tear them up. And it's just so sweet to see that he is embracing this, not from like an intellectual kind of like medical sense, but a really like innate healing. So I just think it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so interesting that he's attracted to that, the lemon balm, and then it directly correlates to the anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of work with ancestors in training, and we've actually been having this conversation about language, which makes me think of just reclaiming, our native tongues, and also like our names. So when I came across your name, I've never seen, Thérèse before. I've seen like Teresa and things like that. What's the story behind your name?
Well, it's a long story, and I'm going to try to recall it by what my mom told me. So my mom chose that name, and it was my mom. She grew up like Roman Catholic, and I grew up in Catholic as well. And basically, I think it was through like a dream that led her to name me that. But it's also named after the Saint Thérèse. There's a Saint Thérèse. And my name, actually, it was really interesting. It means to gather. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because the work that I do is about gathering women, women X, people together to heal. And yeah, I just thought, oh wow, that's really interesting, to gather.
Yeah.
So that's what it means. And my mom, it came from a dream, and that's how I got named that.
I think that's so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my family dreams all the time. Like, it's like we're a dreaming family.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Interpret dreams. My mom, when I was really little, ever since I was little, it's like we would talk about what your dreams and what it meant. And going back to what you're saying about language, there's also a language with dreams. And my mom would be like, my mother had a dream. My grandmother, she's been gone a long time. I never got to meet her. But even that, when we're talking about language, even dreams have a language within the family. So if you pass it down, you kind of can see the threads of what it means, because there are actually very specific things. Like if I have a dream about, let's say, the color yellow, that means something very specific within my family.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, let me just go look it up in a dream dictionary.
Yeah.
So really trying to find the meaning as it's woven through the family line too. I don't know even how we got into dreams, but
yeah. I just think it's so powerful. And also like the fact that your name means to gather. And I know that and I'm blanking on this, but I saw that your like tagline is about like rooting and rising. What is that exactly?
Yeah, it's root. I mean, to me, it really comes from actually gardening. And I started a garden several years ago. And in doing that, to me, it's like rooting deep and then rising high. And a lot of times you hear about, oh, let's rise. However, in order to do that, we have to really be rooted. We have to be rooted into the truth of who we are. We have to be rooted in our actions in order to rise. So, and also rooting is about the earth too, not forgetting our connection to the earth. And actually, this brings up something that I always share with my clients, is that we often think, because I do shadow work as well, so we often think as the shadow aspect as bad. And to me, I don't think of it like that, or even the dark as bad. It's just the unknown. And actually, what the dark represents is what we cannot see. It's what we cannot see, but within the dark, it holds infinite possibility. Kind of like when you go into the roots, it's completely dark. That's where things are birthed. That's where babies are birthed.
Yeah.
So if we're able to be with that, the part that's unknown, the parts where we can't see, that's from there we're able to sprout. That's from there we're able to grow, to flower.
I think that's so beautiful. Yeah. And just like how you're talking about how your dreams, like the messages from your subconscious, are rooted in, your family, your lineage. And to understand that would help you to draw meaning from those messages and to help you, evolve and ascend,
Yeah, just really knowing that. And actually, several years ago, just knowing those meanings, I had this dream about my mom, and I was staying with her in Brooklyn at the time. At that time, I was living in California, and so I was staying with her in Brooklyn at the time. And I was like, I think we need to go to the hospital. And she was like, I'm fine. So I was there the whole day trying to convince her. I'm like, and by the end of the day, I was like, we have to go to the hospital. And I always say end of the day, it's like midnight. Okay. And I'm like, we need to go to the hospital. And she's like, I'm fine. So by 1 o'clock in the morning, we go to the hospital. And, not really having any symptoms, we go to the emergency room. So we took a cab, went to the emergency room. And as we're there, they, do all the taking her pressure and everything. And they decide, okay, we have to we're going to monitor her. So through that, monitoring, what arose was that because we came, a stroke got prevented. So a stroke was on its way, and it was prevented, and she was in the hospital for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
About 2 weeks. From like, she was fine walking around, and I'm like, from that dream, and then just the sense of the day, I was like, we have to go. So I was able to convince her by like 1 o'clock in the morning to like, let's just go. It's, you know, let's just go. Let's take a cab. If it's nothing, we'll just come back. But it actually was something. So being able to, you know and be really deeply connected to our intuition. So I would say that, you know, that's one of the gifts like of that. I feel like my mom, especially, she, even though she wasn't listening to me then, she was like, oh no, I'm fine. But, you know, she eventually gave in, but it was able to prevent this really terrible situation.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you had that dream and were able to convince her. I know that especially in New York, like I've had instances of feeling like I needed to go to the hospital, and this was just like anxiety, but what prevented me from continuing to go was just the frustration of being at the emergency room.
You want to be at the emergency room.
Yeah,
New York
I
City,
couldn't get the word
like,
out. I'm just like, oh, that feeling, you know? So it's like, if you don't have to go, then like, why bother? But I'm so glad that you were able to convince her and that it turned out well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Me too.
So I wanted to ask, how are you doing with the quarantine and being at home, and how has your practice changed or evolved?
Well, I had been probably quarantined before the quarantine. I was like, before we were quarantined, I called my mom. I was like, I think you should stop going to church. I told her, stop going to church. And she didn't listen to me. That's the thing, right? She didn't listen to me, but she listened to the point where she sat in like the last row and didn't like shake hands or hug anyone.
Aww.
She sat away from everyone. But we've been quarantined a little bit longer because of that. What has it been like? It's been stressful. It's been grief. As I shared with you, so many of my family members are on the front lines. Actually, we're doing this in April. And for the first couple of weeks in April, every single day, someone we know, care about, passed away.
Oh my goodness.
Or was hospitalized. So it's been like surreal. We have, you know, people that we know, like the entire family is hospitalized. I'm talking about mom, dad, and children, you know, are in the hospital right now. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot of grief. At the same time, there's been a lot of miracles. Like there are people that have fully recovered and are doing well. So it's literally being able to hold the paradox, being in the grief and being in the now. And as you know, I have a small child. He's 3, and he keeps me in the now. So even with all of this going on, like I have to be super present to him and what's going on with him. So that keeps me in the now, and it keeps me having fun because he wants to have fun all the time. Like there's nothing not fun. So it's holding all of it and being like, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is right now. And honoring my feelings in the moment. Like, okay, if I feel like I need to cry, and okay, that's what it's going to be. And just holding that space, because a part of it is that all my family members, they're still going out and on the front lines right now. So they're like getting up, getting dressed, and leaving their house, leaving their families, and doing that. And that is also giving me faith of like, okay, they're doing their work. And the way that I can honor them doing their work is by doing my work.
Yeah.
The work that I came to do as well. So yeah, of course, I know some people might feel like, oh, I just want to give up. And you know what? Sometimes you need that Netflix binge. You need to just like be under the covers for like however long. I mean, we can't dictate what everyone needs because everyone needs different things at this time. But for some people, they might not want to do that or feel like, oh, I feel like I want to birth something or bring something forward and feel like, oh, maybe it's not the right time. And I just want to speak to those people to say that a lot of, the ways that we can honor the people who are out there on the front line is by doing whatever our work is as well. Because I think with this, what we see is that we are all so interconnected. Like we are not separate. It's not separate. And we're only as well as the person who has the least access to wellness.
Yeah.
We're only as well as that person.
Yeah.
So in our interconnectedness, it expands beyond that. It also expands to what it is that we do. And some people are, having an awakening around, oh, I'm, being driven by the systems, and this is not what I want to do. I want to be more, holistic in the way that I approach my life. And I think that's important. This is an awakening in so many ways.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And the fact that we've sort of had this false sense of wellness, like how you're saying that we're only as well as the least well person. And, a lot of our health disparities have been, there for forever. We just kind of turned a blind eye because we thought we were okay. So I think that, yeah, the blessing in this for me is that we're all aware now. We're all much more aware. And I think that there's a sense of urgency now, like you were saying, to like do our work, because we are feeling that, tomorrow's not promised.
Yeah, tomorrow is completely not promised. And I really want to say, I feel like also Black people, brown people have been saying this for years in terms of like, no, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. It's terrible, actually. And there's still a lot of denial of that right now. Like there are people who are being like, oh, let's reopen the economy and who cares? And we're going to go out with our guns. And, it's like there's still a lot of denial to what is. But our interconnectedness, and the reason why our healthcare is what it is, people are like, why can't we have free healthcare? Why can't we, have, what like Canada has, or what other countries have? And so much of it is rooted in racism. It's rooted in taking of Indigenous land. So it's, and it's going back, once again, you got to go back to the roots of like, why is it the way that it is? It's rooted in erasure. It's rooted in slavery and enslaving people. So if something is rooted in that, you're not going to be for everyone having access to healthcare. You're not going to be for everyone having access to housing. You are actually, because it's built on inequity.
Yeah.
So in order for the vast changes to happen, it's going back to, okay, we have to change the root of that, of like, and make everyone's wellness matter, everyone's beingness and livelihood matter.
Part of me is thinking of the past and how it's just been so broken for so long, and I'm like, they're never going to go for this. And then I'm also like really hopeful because a lot of us are at home now, and a lot of us have the time to go within and check in with ourselves and, get to the root of who we are and what we want the world to look like. So I'm really hopeful. I think in our lifetime, we are going to see revolution, because the revolution will not be televised. It's going to start with us, looking in the mirror and starting with the person that we see. So I'm just so grateful to guides like you, who are here to, show us the path of getting to know ourselves. Can you talk a bit about your workshop that's coming up this Sunday?
Yes, I have a workshop, and it's called Embodied Movement for Uncertain Times. And actually, I'm going to also be teaching a breath work too later on, but the one that's coming up is Embodied Movement for Uncertain Times. So I have an extensive background in dance. I've been dancing since I was like 5, but it's really become a way of healing, because our bodies are the blueprint for our trauma. And what I love about movement and what I love about breath work and somatic work is that it allows us to bypass just the verbal, because I don't know about you, I was raised in a family like, okay, get your good grades and do your work. And that really puts us in right here in our minds, which is great. However, we miss so much by neglecting our bodies. So when we allow movement to be a pathway for healing, or the breath to be a pathway for healing, we don't have to talk about it. It happens within our bodies. It's trusting the wisdom of our bodies. It's like going back to our intuition, kind of like when I told you I had that dream, and then I just knew. The knowingness came from my body. It came from being connected to my body. So as we're navigating these times right now, it's so important to go back to our bodies and giving ourselves permission to release what needs to be released, and to feel what needs to be felt, and then to know what our next steps are, so that we're able to I feel it and I'm going to do it. And we sometimes just try to do it from our heads, but it doesn't work. Oftentimes it doesn't work. It feels like we're pushing. So we need to get all of ourselves involved. So, the work that I do, it integrates all the different levels, from the head, our hearts, our bodies, everything. Spirituality, it brings it all together. And I believe when we move, when we breathe, it fuses, it integrates all of that. So it's going to be really beautiful. We're going to be moving, and you don't have to have a dance background, or all you have to do is have a body and be able to move. And if you're unable to move, maybe you're in a wheelchair, you can still move. You can still move, even sway, or even within your mind, that are small movements. People think, oh, movement has to be really big. That's great, but actually it can be very, very small. So we're going to do this practice of embodied movement, and as a pathway for healing, as a pathway for connecting with ourselves and connecting with what wants to be released and revealed at this time.
I think that's so beautiful and so necessary. I think that in my experience, I've just personally, and I will be in the workshop this weekend because I think I could really benefit. But I've been feeling really disconnected from my body. I mean, since I've had more time, and there's nowhere to go, I've been working to, be more embodied, but I find that I tend to escape, into the mind, because that's just what I'm used to, and just kind of overthinking and overprocessing. And then that's where the anxiety, kind of lives and feels really comfortable. But I love that we can use the body and movement and breath to kind of just let go and bring healing that way. So it's a different pathway, and I'm really curious to explore that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like I shared, I have this long history with like dancing and just different types of somatic work with the body. And it was, you know, especially now in this time, I was doing my meditation, I was doing my breathing, I was walking outside, and something was like, I need to move. There's all this like also collective energy from what is going on. And if we're already inside, for many of us, that means we're not moving as much as we typically move, especially if you live in New York City as you did, you know, going up and down the subway and all around town, running here and there. That movement is not happening. So there's a lot of energy being built up, and it's really important to release that energy. And also the energy of what we're feeling, not only individually, but also collectively. What we're feeling, we're carrying that, we're sensing that, and it expands beyond just New York City. It's like this is happening all over the globe. Yeah. So there's an energy around this as well.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, we're all in this together. Thérèse, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. And I'm really looking forward to your workshop this Sunday, right?
Yeah, this Sunday.
I believe it starts at 4:30 to 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll definitely put the information in the description so you can sign up at minkabrooklyn.com. Thérèse, how can folks follow you and stay in touch?
The best way is through my newsletter. I call them my Liberation Love Letters. It's weekly medicine. So ThérèseCator.com, ThérèseCator.com. And just sign up and we can stay connected. You can also find me on Instagram at Thérèse Cator. So that's the best way to keep in touch. And thank you so much for having me, Trisha. And I'm so happy to be a part of the MINKA family. You had such great questions.
Oh, thank you so much.
I've never asked that question about my name. So thank you so much for asking that.
Yeah, it's just, we're curious. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you at your workshop this Sunday.
Thank you.
All right, take care.